Hey guys, so in light of some recent events, I thought I'd do a video on something very close to my heart, Star Trek. As you will all probably know, Leonard Nimoy sadly passed away last week. And as less of you will know, the day before, I got this. I'm showing you a picture instead of the real thing because it's kind of flaky and gross right now because it's healing. And also I'm currently in pyjamas. I've wanted this tattoo for literally 2 years, but my mum suggested I wait so long to be absolutely sure that I wanted to permanently mark my body with it. Obviously I did. There is never going to be a point in my life where I'm not overwhelmingly in love with Star Trek. I was pretty much raised on Star Trek. My mum is a huge Trekkie, and through her I'd seen pretty much every episode of every Star Trek before the age of 11, at which point I was old enough to seek it out myself and catch up on those I hadn't seen. Except for DS9, which I never really got into, sorry. But Star Trek has been such a huge part of my life. It was a big part of my introduction to sci-fi fantasy as a genre, and then led to the discovery of pretty much everything I love, and also my discovery of fandom. I owe a lot of good things in my life to Star Trek. And on a bigger scale, the world owes a lot of good things to Star Trek. Sure, it's about space travel and aliens and finding new worlds and new civilizations, which is always awesome. But it's also about a better society, about humanity coming together to overcome our greed and putting our ambitions towards creating a better quality of life. Doing things that benefit everyone without expecting anything in return. Everyone is perfectly happy just doing things because they love them and because it helps people, and that's pretty amazing. But also pretty sad because a lot of that could be achievable if people were able to look past the cost of things economically and start looking at the cost of things socially. To stop thinking about how much money it would take them and start thinking about how much it would benefit society in the long run. Like, I'm not saying that if we weren't all selfish assholes we could have Starfleet, though it would be very, very cool if we did. But we could definitely have a better world than we do currently. And I could spend hours and hours discussing the reasons for my love of Star Trek, but that would probably just descend into emotional babbling and no one needs to see that. But they are all reasons that so many years ago I was so freaking excited when they announced the reboot movies. And all reasons why, after the initial hype and excitement died down, I was disappointed with the reboot movies. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy watching them. The cast is perfection. Original series is my favourite Star Trek series, and it is so awesome seeing these actors who look so amazingly like younger versions of familiar faces. I mean, can we talk about Karl Urban for a second, please? But despite the great cast and the cool premise of the timeline change allowing for some deviation and creative freedom, and the technology making things a lot slicker than the days of cardboard sets and low-budget aliens, it's just not got the Star Trek vibe, and the more you look at it, the more you realise how problematic it is. There are plenty of essays and blog posts on this subject. It's something that makes a lot of Trekkies, myself included, enormously angry and frustrated. Reboot Trek is horrendously sexist. Of the 4 named female characters in the entire 2 films, a whole 4 ladies, everyone. 1, possibly 2 die, and 3 are seen in their underwear for no reason whatsoever. Where is Nurse Chapel? Where is Janice Rand? Original series was filmed in the 60s and it still has better female representation than this. And that doesn't even cover the new uniform design for women. Sure, the originals were miniskirts, same as the new ones. But the originals show a woman's rank stripes on her sleeves, the same as a man's tunic. There is no indication of rank anywhere on the women's uniform in Reboot Trek, which about shows their opinion on female officers. Uhura, a hugely empowered woman in the original series, is pretty much relegated to the role of Spock's love interest. Occasionally doing something badass, but mostly sidelined for the guys. The characterization in general is pretty lax if we're being honest. Like Jim Kirk being portrayed as a careless playboy renegade with no respect for women or for people in general. I'm sorry, I love Chris Pine, but that is just not the Jim Kirk I grew up with. There are a dozen more reasons why Reboot Trek is falling short, but the heart of the matter is that it just doesn't live up to the ethos of its predecessors. The beautiful thing about Star Trek is that it's all about pushing boundaries, making revolutionary breakthroughs and expressing a better society. Original series Trek had the first televised interracial kiss, which was a pretty big deal. Reboot could be doing so much more. In this day and age, Star Trek could be doing so many amazing things for equality and representation. Aliens without a gender binary, humans without a gender binary, people of all races and cultures and abilities and sexualities existing without any problems caused by any of those factors. Star Trek as a fandom is a beautiful, glorious thing full of passionate and creative people. The amount of amazing headcanons on Tumblr alone make me proud to be a Trekkie. And also make me wish those people were in charge of the next film. I'm hoping that with Simon Pegg behind the wheel we should get something more closely resembling Star Trek as we know and love it, but I'll be honest, I won't be surprised if we don't. I still love Star Trek. The failings of the new movies aren't going to take away from the brilliance of the older series. Star Trek has made me the person I am today, and I am a better person for having it in my life. I just want that legacy to continue through all of those kids growing up whose first exposure to Star Trek is the new movies. I want them to see Star Trek and be astounded by the universe, to be inspired to explore and learn and achieve. I want them to see Star Trek and want to boldly go where no man has gone before. Leonard Nimoy is not the only member of the original cast that we've lost. And I know there are countless stories of kindness and wonderfulness about James Doohan and DeForest Kelley and Majel Barrett Roddenberry and Grace Lee Whitney. But they all died before my time, really, so Nimoy is the first one whose loss has really hit me emotionally. He embodied the ethos of Star Trek. He was an enormously generous man who had nothing but love for the world and used Star Trek as the platform to share that love. I think it's the least we can do to try and keep that ethos as whole and pure as we can, don't you? I need to wrap this up because otherwise I will either start crying again or spend an hour stood on my Star Trek soapbox. Cosplayer of the week is Catlin Cosplay. Happy belated birthday, Heidi, and welcome to adulthood. It's all downhill from here. And to Leonard Nimoy, who I like to think is watching over this from whatever form of afterlife there may or may not be, thank you for everything you have brought to my life and to the lives of others. You prospered, but you did not live long enough.